Welcome back to another episode of What's Next? Longevity Deal Talk. We're glad you are tuning in, and we aim to make it time well spent. We'll get started right after this message from Emba.
Imagine if you could reduce falls in your communities by over 50%. Imagine if you could reduce hospitalizations by 1/3. Imagine if at the same time you could reduce expenditure. I'm Stuart Hamilton, the founder and CEO of Amber, and those results are exactly what our clients are achieving. We deploy discrete passive sensors in the homes of your residents, along with a really simple platform for your caregivers. There are no cameras and no wearables required. At Simpson in Pennsylvania, these are the results we achieved in our first 3 months. Very significant reductions in falls, hospitalizations, and even in psychotropic drug use. Let's hear a few words from the president and CEO of Simpson, Dr. Carol McKinley.
So when I'm sitting with the AMBA creator, the founder, and he's describing to me the various aspects of what AMBA tracks and how it does that, it was like you are talking a vision in my head, and you have now done it, and you have tried it, and it's working. The information that AMBA provides is simple enough that I can look at the dashboard and know that there's something not right, because I can see the red alerts or the yellow alerts that say there's a change here. And I can ask my clinicians what's going on. In the long run, I knew that I needed AMBA just from all of the aspects that it provides. One fall in my organization can create a major lawsuit that can take away a lot of dollars. When you're investing in this type of product, you know that you're having cost savings in one area that helps support the financial end of the investment in technology.
I would love to explore whether and how we could deliver these results in your community. Please contact me via our website at amberhealth.com or drop me an email directly, stu@amber.co. Thanks very much.
Welcome back. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Fred. We have some exciting guests joining us on our podcast today, and they're some of my very favorite people. First, let's introduce our friend Greg Olson, who heads the New York State Office on Aging. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Mary. Hi, Fred. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. And we have a deal to talk about involving Greg and a company called Lotus, where Deval Patel is CEO. Hi, Deval.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
And continuing with our all-star Deal Talk lineup, we have Dan Herman, CEO and Head of Investment Banking at Ziegler. Hi, Dan. You've had a busy summer.
We've had a busy summer for sure. Lots of transactions in the market. Glad to be on this morning.
Dan, we want to turn to you first for some of the latest news from Ziegler, maybe a snapshot of what you're seeing here in mid-August when it comes to the longevity marketplace and the deals that Ziegler's doing.
Sure. And related to longevity and related to the senior living and care market, I'll note first, just because it's so vibrant on the not-for-profit side. So we're bringing numerous transactions to the market for expansions of communities. And many of those newer expansions and new locations are using a lot of the tech-related tools, AI-driven tools for all forms of service to residents. And we could roll through those concepts, Mary, if you wanted, but that's the great news on these modern expansions. But we'll probably bring $3 billion of not-for-profit senior living to market this year in the form of expansions and new locations. And then you may have seen in the news this week the thriving market in senior living from an occupancy perspective. I literally just left watching CNBC and Debbie Cafaro from Ventas talking about that to the national market. So occupancy is all back to pre-pandemic levels and continuing to swell because new development is more expensive to build such that, and it doesn't deliver the returns needed on the private sector side, and that's leading to the lowest amount of new capacity, even though the not-for-profits are building in the last decade. So it's a perfect storm for financial performance. That's good because that will lead to more investment in the various technologies serving residents and communities and in the homes. And then in the M&A sector, sell side sector, and venture capital raising side, markets are moving, deals are moving through. It's a fair market from a regulatory perspective. It's not too restrictive. Greg, I hate to say this, other than in the state of New York, where it takes a little longer to get things done on the regulatory side. But that's good in the markets of digital and all the various forms of healthcare, IT, and services. The only headwind, or one of the headwinds of it, is if it's a Medicaid payer base, that's causing caution until everyone knows how that plays out.
Are there any deals you want to mention by name, Dan?
Let me come back to the ones by name in the M&A and venture market, partly because I got to make sure we're public on a couple of those. But Ziegler Linkage Funds did make an investment in a organization that works on transfer from the health systems and hospitals into either home settings or into post-acute settings. And that's a technology AI-driven sector. The press release is not out yet, so that's why I'm hesitating on the name, but we're excited about that space as one example. And then on the senior living community side, we just did a second campus for the Fleet Landing organization, which is now called Polaris Endeavors. To give you an idea on expense, that was $330 million. We just priced that last week with tax-exempt bonds, providing a second campus in the greater Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra marketplace. And that's what we're seeing from our not-for-profit providers. So that's one example, but that gives you an idea of the size of these locations if you build a new location. So I'll stop there for now.
Well, thanks, Dan. Great stuff. And let's bring in Greg Olson from the New York State Office for the Aging. Let's maybe get your perspective, Greg, and then we'll hear about what you're doing with Lotus.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for the question. I think as a government official that is responsible for 4.84 million people over the age of 60, we're the pre-Medicaid community-based long-term care system in New York State. And really going back to around 2018 is when we started with the advancement of technology. Never intended to replace a human being, but the bottom line is that we have a lot of clients and customers across the state of New York that just simply don't have anybody. We live in a tech society. Older adults use tech at the same rate as everybody else. And so from the fall of 2018 with our first project with Ageless Innovation and their animatronic pets, through to where we are now, we have currently 31 public-private partnerships with tech and AI companies, serving almost 2 million more people to try to, again, meet older adults and their families where they are, maintain their independence for as long as possible, which is why we were so excited to partner with Duvall, and certainly don't want to steal his thunder. But, what we're trying to do is show, not just demonstrate what the problems are, because we've known them for 3 decades, but actually what's possible. And, I'm really proud of the work and the partnerships that we have. We're trying to replicate the things that we're doing in New York, how we do it across the country. Some of those projects are picking up, but, it's a comprehensive way to meet a variety of service gaps, from people who are at risk to those who are trying to, like I say, maintain their health and independence.
So we always love it when we turn up a winner from our competition. So let's learn about Lotus, a company we've come to know and love. Duvall, tell us about the product, the service, and the impact it's having on older adults.
Sure. Well, in a nutshell, for anyone with limited mobility, it's a wearable ring that controls certain objects at home by pointing. But unlike traditional smart home technology, there's no app, no rewiring, and no internet. And much thanks to Greg, we sort of greenlit a pilot. I'll let Greg sort of share his thoughts on sort of why we had the pilot in the first place. And then we can come back to sort of, the actual results of the pilot, which I'm happy to share, but I'll turn it over to Greg.
Yeah, and I'll be quick because I really want Duvall to kind of walk through what we were able to do. Look, I bumped into Duvall in Washington, D.C. restaurant, and the rest is history, right? And the way that I kind of approach these projects are not looking for something specifically. I get that question a lot. What's the next big tech? My answer is always the same. I have no idea, but I'll know it when I see it. And so a lot of the things that we have done, whether it be combating social isolation, increasing engagement, lifelong learning, training on how to use digital solutions, frauds and scams against older adults. They all fill a gap that, based on my 33 years as a geriatric social worker, you just know exist. And so when Duvall was talking to me about his ring, the work that they did with not just older adults, I think what I was really interested in was not only its applicability to older adults, but we work pretty extensively with the disability community in New York. And another target for the Lotus Ring was veterans. And in New York State, 70%, 440,000 veterans are over the age of 60, the overwhelming majority. So for us, it really clicked all three boxes. We were able to work with some of our partners to kind of divvy up the number of rings between those three populations, and Duvall can walk through what the results are. But I think, again, one of the not only the solution I was interested in piloting, but I like the way he went about his business, and some of the other companies we work with do as well, that they're not putting a solution on somebody. They're working with the people that it's designed to be utilized to actually provide feedback and test it. And, that goes miles.
Much thanks for the kind words, Greg. So yeah, much thanks to Greg, we sort of kicked off this pilot. Just like Greg mentioned, it was with three of their departments: Department of Aging, Department of Disability, Department of Veterans Affairs. So the original intent was to have around 51 people participate in the pilot for a couple of months. We actually had more requests than 51, so we sort of stretched up to 60. I took two really wonderful trips to New York. What Greg is describing is essentially sort of our human-centered design process. We give people the devices, we actually go meet them where they are, we get their live feedback. So these are long interviews, about 90 minutes long. And then we try and iterate, and we do it quickly. So I had two trips to New York. Fun fact, one of the trips was 1,947 miles. Really wonderful, because we're meeting these wonderful human beings wherever they are. I'll focus on sort of two big takeaways. There's tons of data. We probably don't have enough time to get through everything, but sort of the two big takeaways. Our big focus was giving people more independence and improving their quality of life. And so we would give these surveys, before the pilot and after. Most people ended up, the original intent of the pilot was only to be about 60 days. The pilot actually stretched to over 90 days because most people wanted to keep their devices. In fact, even now we get requests for people to just keep their devices. So in the surveys, we would ask them to score us on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is really, really bad, 10 is really, really good. And what was particularly shocking is, for both independence and quality of life, the average score was 9.1 and 9.4. And this is over a span of 87 interviews. One thing I should mention, one of the things we did for the first time, thanks to the state of New York, is we not only interviewed the end users themselves, we also interviewed caregivers. So it turns out when you help the end user, whether it's a veteran or someone with a disability or just an older adult or even pregnant mom, their family members and even staff members also benefit. And so that was particularly new. The other big thing we did for the very first time, thanks to Greg in the state of New York, is we handed it to people with cognitive disabilities for the very first time. We'd actually never done that before. So traumatic brain injuries, intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so that in and of itself was a really great outcome, which was, we were kind of almost celebrating, with about 89% of people giving us a score of 8 or higher. So it's a really, really high number. What was shocking, though, is, as a side question, we also happened to ask them, hey, by the way, do you think a solution like this, where you don't have to get up in the first place, or by turning on the lights before you start moving, especially when you have to go use the restroom at night, do you think something like this would help prevent a fall? And what was shocking is that not only was the score even higher, so an average score of fall prevention, 9.2 out of 10, a higher percentage of people actually gave us higher scores. So 93% of people reported scores of 8 or higher. So what we thought was the primary use case, which was just increasing independence and improving quality of life, was sort of outshone by the fact that without having to get up in the first place, you prevent all these falls. And that somehow became sort of the star of the show, which, again, complete surprise to us. We just learned this after processing the data maybe less than a week ago. So that's the nutshell version of the pilot.
Let's give our audience kind of a clear picture, Deval, of how this works, what it is. It's a ring that essentially turns into a remote control for lighting, right?
That's exactly right. So step one, you put on a ring. That eliminates the need to have a speaker in every room of the house because that's what you would have to do otherwise. Step two, for any existing wall switch, so if you had a regular wall switch, step two, you can attach a Lotus switch cover and it just snaps on using the magnet. There's no rewiring. Now you can continue using the wall switch manually, like a regular wall switch, or point and click. And using infrared, just like a TV remote, eliminates the need for any app, smartphone, or Wi-Fi. So essentially, you can convert any space into an accessible smart space in about 2 seconds. But funnily enough, more importantly, you can take it with you wherever you go. And that seems to be the other feature that people seem to love a lot, because a lot of people would take this with them when they went to a hotel or an Airbnb on vacation or just visiting friends or family.
And there's
So,
so much smart home technology out there. Are your customers typically new to all of that? There's no need to have to figure out the smart home connections with your phone and everything else, right?
So the reason I'm smiling, what's particularly interesting, and this actually came up in the New York interviews as well, we would ask people, sure, now you've heard about Lotus and we're happy that you like it, but why haven't you used, Alexa or Google Home or any of these other smart home technologies? Because those have been around for 11 years. It was released back in 2014. And I'll ask sort of a random question, and Fred, you're in the industry a lot, so I'll ask you, if you had to guess, what percentage of homes do you think actually use a smart speaker to control their lights? Sort of basic use case. If you had to venture a guess,
My kids and me, it's 100%, but I guess overall it's probably in the neighborhood of 35, maybe something like that.
it's 5.7%
Oh my goodness.
after 11 years. That's Alexa. If you add up all the speakers, we're talking around 9%. It's really small. And the reason for that, it turns out, is its complexity. So if you wanted Alexa to control your lights, the first step is you would have to rewire that wall switch to connect to the internet to be able to talk to your Alexa or Google or Siri. Then you have to put speakers everywhere you did the rewiring, and then you have to set it all up. And by the way, this is all best case if you own your house. If you're renting an apartment, what do you do? And even if you somehow did all this, if you then travel for work or for pleasure, what do you do? So it turns out state of New York, same as everybody else. Actually, 91% of homes were built before smart homes even existed, before 2008. And most of these folks have no easy way of upgrading. So it turned out the thing that people loved most about Lotus, again, imposter syndrome coming to mind, was just the simplicity. They just wanted something that was simple, straightforward, and everyone knows how to use a TV remote. And that was actually the basis of the product in the first place.
and for special needs populations, this is life-changing.
Yeah, in the words of someone, actually, this is on a personal note, I'm going to be a little vulnerable. I was doing many interviews. I drove down to Staten Island. By the time I got down there, it was sort of late. It was 8 p.m. And one of the users was Gerard. I'll leave out his last name for privacy. And he has severe IDD. And actually, it turns out, and most people don't know this, for people with IDD, most of them are nonverbal. Either they have slurred speech or speech impairment, so they can't use an Alexa even if they wanted. But a lot of them just don't have the cognition for sort of a high complex language like English. So I walked in, he sort of didn't even say anything. He just sort of asked me to follow him to his room with gestures. And in his room, for the first time in 17 years, he turned on and off his own lights. And before I left, so it was late at night. I was a bit worried I was overstaying my welcome. And so we talked about it. He started to say something. He has slurred speech. And I sort of looked to his caregiver saying, I can't really understand. And she understood. And she sort of asked me to sort of keep listening and figure it out. And in a very slow manner, he finally said the words, "Thank you for making this device. It has given me more independence." And the second time around, I went back. I actually managed to catch it on camera. But I remember I was so moved, I didn't know what to do. I came and sat in the car in the garage because I'd rented a car and just wept for about 15 minutes, just in his garage, just crying because I was so shocked. Because I was originally convinced I had all these preconceived notions that maybe someone with a cognitive disability won't be able to use it or understand it or benefit. So yeah, I was equally surprised.
There you go, Greg. That's really in changing people's lives, right?
Well, I mean, that's the whole goal. And when you have
Right.
products like Duval's and others, I think to get back to kind of how you started the question, all of this stuff is new, especially to older adults. But if it's simple, like the Ring or some of the other projects, they absolutely will use it. They'll embrace it. And to the data and statistics Deval talked about, we're measuring all of them. And what you're seeing is just that it's off the charts. And so this is the new world. Whether you're building not-for-profit housing like Dan was talking about, all of these types of solutions now that just need to be institutionalized into the construction or renovation, not as an add-on.
I remember Apple, and Deval was at Apple in the early days. They had a slogan that said, uh, Apple lets ordinary people do extraordinary things, but also lets extraordinary people do ordinary things. And I thought that was really an important thing. So, Dan, let's talk a little bit about the future with you and Greg and Deval. When you look ahead to the remainder of 2025, what are some things that concern you or things that you're looking forward? And I like hearing that occupancy's up. And I was at a meeting last week, and 300 people were in the AI group in a senior community listening and learning about AI. So there's a lot of interest in these. These are pretty vibrant communities that are full of exciting older people.
So I think that, Mary, is going to be a driver, as I said before. When the providers get confidence to continue to grow and make investments into the future around technology-enabled tools, as Deval just described and Greg described, whether it's into their communities or into the home, and not-for-profit senior living providers are very big at providing home and community-based services in many markets. Over 50% of the leading age Ziegler 200 have home and community-based platforms. And then there's a huge private sector home and community-based marketplace out there, as we know. And then you have all the AAAs that Greg and you all know well. So it's an exciting time in that regard. And as you know, we've had a significant amount of consolidation among all the technology platforms selling into senior living and care, either in communities or in the home, but then a significant number of new entrants like Deval and others just continuing to come up with additional solutions. So it's an exciting time for sure. One of the keys, as you know, and you've highlighted, is that you have to be able to present an ROI scenario to the providers or the companies that are willing to deploy these services. Another is they want to believe you're going to be able to survive. They know that you might be rolled up someday, but they don't want to commit to a technology, invest in it, and then have it dissipate over time because the company doesn't succeed in one way or another.
Right.
So that's very important. But it's going to be neat to watch the vibrancy coming from these very full senior living providers around the country. And I think that will ripple into a lot of numerous forms of investments that reach every size company. So we view this as the golden age of senior living and care coming up, 2025 through 2030, with the demographics being profound as ever. And NIC, the National Investment Center, where Lisa McCracken is the head of research, and she used to be our head of research, promotes this information routinely. In fact, it was them quoted today on CNBC for all of these statistics. So if you're not tracking the NIC statistics, they're free, they're easy to access, and they provide significant information. And what everyone knows is there's no way to build enough senior living locations. So Greg, take the state of New York, whether you went upscale all the way down to affordable, there's no way to build enough communal locations. So getting services into the home is absolutely critical, which you're doing a phenomenal job on your role in New York. And we're seeing the results of that. So the home is clearly going to be a key because there's no way to build enough of these settings. And then one more observation is that as folks build senior living, it helps the American housing stock, where we obviously have a shortage. So every time you open a new senior living unit, expansion or new development, you free up single family housing or apartments for the regular population. And people sometimes tend to forget that. That's another reason growing the senior living marketplace can be helpful.
Maybe for you and Greg, and you've covered some of this ground already, but have there been any changes in the types of companies or entrepreneurs that you're looking to invest in or partner with, new fields or skills that the audience should know about?
Fred, I would say it just continues to involve where, along the lines of what I said, as venture investors look to invest, they do want to know the organization can succeed in the marketplace and secure clients, retain clients, and build financial stability typically through growing their AAR. Uh, and they Another theme along these lines is it's more attractive if you can sell into multiple markets. The senior living and care market, which is part of the age tech market, is substantial, but if you can do senior living and care and the home and payers, maybe health systems too, or some mix of those channels, gives you a much greater opportunity to succeed. So the venture side, and again, it depends on whether you're early stage, mid stage, or late stage venture, that does play into it, is looking to know you have multiple channels to succeed into selling into, and don't underestimate the time, complexity, and cost of securing clients, which tends to get underestimated all the time. I do have one more public one I'll mention, Mary, because I wanted to make sure it was public. So Ziegler represented Zelf in the sale to Samsung, who electronics, and that's now public. And that will aims to integrate Samsung's wearable technology with Zelf's platform, seamless connection between real-time patient monitoring, clinical decision-making. That is geared to the health system market. A number of the investors in Zelf were major health systems of the country, but the big aspect there is an international company growing their presence in the US.
Yes, they're coming on strong, I think, Samsung. Well, congratulations.
And Greg, we're going to give you a crack if you'd like at what you're looking for in terms of
Yeah,
types of companies or entrepreneurs to partner with.
Yeah, Fred, I'm going to answer that a little bit differently. I don't disagree with anything that Dan had talked about. I think that we're moving in the right direction, but there's some realities out there that we can't ignore. So one of the things that Dan alluded to, and I'll just say it straight out, HR1 just cut $800 billion out of the Medicaid program. We hear a lot of talk about rural hospitals, and rightly so, but it's really the entire healthcare and long-term care infrastructure, from bricks and mortar to workforce to access, et cetera, that are going to be impacted by that. That bill alone has created a $7.6 billion deficit in New York State's budget next year. We haven't even gone through the 13 appropriations bills that are due at the end of September, which fund agencies like mine and a lot of others, not only at the state level, but the county level and then the not-for-profit level. So these types of investments are going to be even more important given the reality of what we're dealing with federal funding. So part of it for me is a wait and see. We already got HR1, but I have no idea what my budget's going to be next year. It's not the only funding source, but it's a significant one. And what I'm worried about is, these projects that we've started having to either curtail them or end them completely. And that was never the goal. I mean, some of them are short-term pilots. Others have continued to get support because they work and we're able to do those things. So, this is a time where we need to be investing, not curling back, but there's going to be some realities that, especially from government side, we're going to have to deal with. And so I'm hoping we're not going backwards. Just the final thing is how important over my shoulder here our logo is for the trust factor. The public does not know what solutions to trust, what works, what doesn't work. And in an environment where $52 billion a year is stolen from older adults through scams and financial fraud, folks need the logo that says that we tested it, we vetted it, it works, you can trust it. Because as I've mentioned to you guys many, many times, the goal for me is short-term and long-term. If I can take risks and partner with companies like Duval and others, we can put them into our clients' homes, we can evaluate them over time. That helps my clients because they're at risk. They're at immediate risk of hospitalizations, nursing home placement, Medicaid spend down. But there's a whole private pay market out there. People like me that could buy these things on behalf of my parents. older adults that have money. Not every older adult is poor. Then you talk about Medicare Advantage, MLTC, crossing over into other agencies like persons with disabilities, Veterans Affairs. So that's always been the goal, is for us to take the risk, even though there is no risk. You learn something regardless. And then there's a bunch of different funding and financial mechanisms. But having our endorsement, I think, goes a long way. And it certainly has in replicating these things across the country when they know we've done it.
That's a really important point. Well, we look forward to an exciting fall. We will see you all at the National Press Club December 15th, 16th, and 17th, which you told me is going to be one of the most important events we do, because we've got to bring other groups together to the funding table to support in case of any funding losses. So this has been a great discussion. Greg, Dan, and Duval, we so appreciate you taking the time with us and the great work that you're doing. It really is changing the lives of older adults.
Let me add my appreciation too. Thank you all for taking time with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
We appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Mary, we like to keep everyone up on the latest, and there is some news from the senior living technology platform, August Health.
They've raised $29 million in Series B funding to help expand their AI platform. Among the participants was Solera Living and Equitage Ventures, where co-founder Danny Kaplan keeps up to date on the latest. If you have deals, make sure you let us know.
You can look for the contact button at maryfurlong.com. Thank you again to our guests today and to our sponsor, AMBA, providing technology to enable responsive, personalized, and effective care. Discover how AMBA can benefit your facility, your residents, their families, and caregivers. Find more at ambahealth.com. And of course, thank you for taking the time to watch or listen. You can always find us at maryfurlong.com/podcast.